car that made no attempts to doing something out of the ordinary. Hello everyone! Over here is the Renault Dauphine. Now, the Renault Dauphine is a very interesting small car which I just stumbled across recently, guys, in this state. And the reason why I say interesting is because, well, it has a rich history. So all the time, guys, the French car manufacturers like Renault, Peugeot, Citroen, they all grew and expanded from small cars. This was the case with Citroen, actually. Renault had a very interesting history, and that's why now, before covering the topic of the Renault Dauphine, I want to talk about the history of Renault as a brand. The most important thing to note about the Renault brand, guys, is that Renault is a car manufacturer that never really saw big success in any venture they tried. They have a reputation for trial and error, guys. The thing is, Renault also never had a really solid reliability. The engine was bulletproof, don't get me wrong, guys. The electronics was also another topic, guys, of that era and even today's generation. And Renault got into collaborations with Chrysler. Now, it was a failed collaboration. It was a flop. Any collaboration Renault got involved with was a flop. Over here is the Renault Dauphine from 1965. Ooh, what a legend, guys. Now, the Renault Dauphines were built from the 1950s, the mid-50s, until the 1967, guys. The lifespan of the Renault Dauphine was not very long. And there are some reasons behind this. As I've mentioned, Renault had a blessing for innovation, but they never really had a blessing for having the most reliable of cars. And unfortunately, the Renault Dauphine was a victim of this. And now this is where I come to another important topic. Believe it or not, these cars actually saw success in North America briefly. They did not have the reputation because the rust was a problem. The quality of the salt that would have been used for the winter on the roads in North America, these salts were responsible for the rust of the Renault Dauphine. Now, it was down to Renault to do advanced research before setting foot in North America. Now, if they had done their advanced research, I think today the Renault brand would have actually been a big relevance in North America. But trial and error, guys. Renault politics. Now, guys, the situation in North America back in the 60s for Renault was so bad that, according to a source, a ship loaded with these Renault Dauphines was turned around because there were already plenty of Renault Dauphines at the port of New York that were not even sold. It was this bad, guys, the situation for Renault in North America. So yes, so you know, looking at this car, there's it's like a reminder of it, because it saw success here in Europe, but in North America it was resented for almost everything. And then this comes down to another topic, guys, about differences between French roads and North American roads. Back in the days and even today, guys. For reviewing this Renault Dauphine, I just want to tell you all that, you see, the differences in roads also contributed to why this Renault Dauphine saw no success in North America. In France, the roads are never straight. Every meter it turns, guys. Like, so, you know, next meter you're turning there, next meter you're turning there. They just do not have straight roads, and that's why in France you need to have a small maneuverable car. In North America, the roads goes in a straight line forever. All right, that's where the Renault Dauphine was perceived to be boring to drive. It was not interesting to drive. They wanted more power to drive from A to B, and the Renault Dauphine did not offer this. Whereas in France, the Renault Dauphine saw success not just because of the French pride, but because it was small, it was maneuverable, and it was easy to live with. So you see, guys, the difference in the daily life of an American and the daily life of a French, and the daily life of a French, guys. It's very interesting. Believe me, guys, I have been to France recently. I can confirm. Oh boy, let's just say if you drive anything that's not French, if you drive anything that's a big vehicle, so if you drive an SUV, or if you drive a pickup, or if you drive a minivan, yeah, you're probably going to come back to Belgium with a dent, or you're going to come back to Belgium with your mind exploded because of just how much traffic there is, or just how on the highway there's always a toll, and how the cities in France are, the streets in France are so narrow, you have to be very careful. Right, everyone, 1965 Renault Dauphine. Now, this one has seen better days, obviously. If you look at it, this is the front design. Looks very interesting, guys. Now, when I look at it from this angle, something about the front reminds me of something Renault usually does with the Renault Clio. Because the Renault Clio always has a front like this. In fact, the first generation, the Renault Twingo had the exact similar front, except there was no straight line on the bonnet. But it had circular headlights. Now, over here, side view of the Renault Delphine. Side view of the Renault Dauphine, everyone. Looks very interesting, and I think this leads me to talk about the difference between Citroen and Renault back in the days. I'm not counting Peugeot, because that time Peugeot had a really generic image. It was very hard to identify Peugeot. But one thing we can establish is that Citroen had always the sharp lines. They always had, their cars were always small and just straight lines and sharp edges. Otherwise, they did have some round edges, but with straight lines everywhere. Like, whenever I see Citroen in the 60s or 50s, first thing that comes to my mind is sharp edges. Renault, on the other hand, had something different going on. They were always this, they always had a little bit of a generic image, but just they were very round-edged in most sides. Like, I'm looking around this Renault Dauphine, and I do not see a single straight line, except on the bonnet, guys, and on the side. What is remarkable is that the French were one of the only car manufacturers of the 60s and 50s to have 3 bolts on the wheels. Now, Citroen also had this. Like, in fact, whenever I see 3 bolts on the wheels, the first thing that comes to my mind is Citroen and Renault. I do not know about Peugeot, because one thing we have to also establish is that when it comes to small cars, I'd say the trophy goes to Citroen and Renault mainly, because they built the economy cars at that time, which were very popular. Whereas Peugeot was always more... like, think of something like a Volkswagen Passat, or think of something like a Volkswagen Golf, yeah? Something a bit bigger, you know, they were more into bigger vehicles. Whereas this is something like a Volkswagen Polo or Volkswagen Up, you know? Or Renault Twingo. I'm going to tell you all something very important. This is a rear wheel drive Renault Dauphine, and when I say rear wheel drive, I actually mean the engine is at the rear. As you can see over here, these are the air intakes for the airflow to the engine, guys. And if you want to believe me, the evidence is right here. Ta-da! The engine of the Renault Dauphine. Now, the engine of the Renault Dauphine, guys, very reliable. In fact, French cars were very reliable when it comes to engines, but electronics was a different story. And let's just say the bodyworks was also a different story. I mean, like, look at this. Oh my god, look at this bonnet. It's so... Well, I mean, it is lightweight, which is true. It is lightweight, which is true, but then at the same time... Like, I see, those were the times when safety was not a big deal. You could build whatever you want with whatever material and nobody would say anything, because there was no such thing as safety experts. Now, this reminds me of the piece of information I found about the rusty Dauphines in the USA back in the winters, when the rust would, yeah, where rust was a big problem for the Dauphine. And then, this is the interior. Ah, it smells very nice in there. Hello? Hello? Ah, the acoustics, guys. Just look at this. It's so wonderful. You know what I find really interesting? It still manages to... it's something about this interior screams 60s. You know, despite it being in the state it is. Still screams 60s. Guys, taking a look at the interior already confirmed one thing. The Renault Dauphine was kind of built to It was not built to last. It was not built to kind of put a point or to mark something groundbreaking. It was built as an A to B machine, and this was obvious with the interior. Yeah, as you can tell, legroom is very, very, well, what I would say questionable, but then at the same time, if you look at the pedals, they're almost at the middle, guys. It's not symmetrical. It's almost at the middle. And you can tell that the wheels eat into the footwell, so you don't have much leg room, guys, as the driver or as a front passenger. See that? So practicalities. So I mean, obviously that time there was no such thing as practicality or something or good value for money. All people wanted was an A to B machine that drives, but it looks very yeah. Very interesting, guys. But then this leaves me to come down to another topic about classics. Although the door is heavy, it's real metal, guys. Looks very nice. I like the sound of the door, by the way. True sound of the 60s. Rear seats, guys. Yeah. I'm gonna show you guys the rear. This is the rear design. So yep, that's that about the Renault Dauphine. Trial and error, guys. The symbol of trial and error, but at the same time it just looks really appealing to look at. And it did sell like hotcakes here in Europe, but yeah, they didn't last very long, just like Renault cars of today. This is the reason why you don't hear much about classic Renaults. That's why they don't have a big fan base, unfortunately. See? It's always Volkswagen and Citroen that had a fan base because they built the cars that everyone would desire, everyone would love to drive. But the Renault Dauphines, now there's a reason why I have not heard from it. I mean, I've always heard of the Citroen 2 chevaux. I've heard of many cars from the 60s and 50s, but the Dauphine, I heard the name, but I just never saw one a lot. Or not many people in forums or people on the internet talk about it. And now, this is the answer. This is the reason why. Because it's a car that made no attempts to do something out of the ordinary. What we can establish is that Renault was undergoing an identity crisis. So it's a crisis where Renault did not specialize in anything. That was also a problem Opel used to have. So basically, Renault did not have the reliability. They did not have the flamboyance. Well, the style is there. I like the design, but then the design is of selective taste. So here's my conclusion about the Renault Dauphine, everyone. This is basically proof that Renault has not changed one bit, guys. In today's generation, Renault is the exact same brand we had all known of the 1950s and 60s. Basically, the post-World War era. Although it's one thing that still stands out about Renault, the positive aspect is that they still continue to innovate. They still continue to do some groundbreaking designs that actually turn heads, that actually really draw attention. Like the Renault Espace, the Renault Avantime, and then also Renault cars of today, guys. There are many new models, guys, like the Renault Arcana. But then I'm suspicious about the Arcana. I have a feeling it's based on something Nissan also does, or probably on some Nissan parts, because you know Nissan and Renault have something going on. Now for the Renault Dauphine, well, let's see if Renault can come back to this car and do something about it for today's generation. If Renault could come up with something more reliable, they might as well win the trophy. Not just in the Formula 1, but also in the automotive industry, in the EU market, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned for more videos that are on the run, guys. And don't forget to check the links in the description for my car reviews, travel videos, and my creativity videos.